Welcome everyone. Thanks for watching. This has been a long time in the making. I've been wanting to do a bourbon review for a few years. Just finally got to the point where we can put it together. As you can see, this is my studio. It's outside because I like to smoke my cigars when I drink my bourbon sometimes. Because it's a live setting in the back, you're going to hear all kinds of stuff. You may hear the thunder and lightning here in Florida and the rain. You may hear some wild birds. You may even hear some peacocks, even though no, I'm not in the country, but our subdivision has some peacocks running around and they squeal. Sometimes it sounds like a child is hurt, but trust me, it's okay. So I've been wanting to do these bourbon reviews. I watch a lot of them on YouTube channels, Instagram. There are a lot of great guys out there with a lot of information. I've learned a lot from them, but I've realized I'm just a common guy. I like to drink bourbon, and I don't really need a lot of information about it to help me on my journey. So I'm going to tell my story tonight. It's not about me. It's about how I got into bourbon, so you can hear the story. So if you are someone that was like me 5 years ago, I wanted to get into bourbon, I didn't know where to start, how to go about it, what to drink. All I knew about bourbon at that point was Jim Beam and Jack Daniels and early times from growing up and being around it. And so there was a period of time for about 28 years where I couldn't even stand the smell of bourbon because of a little issue with me and Mr. James Beam had while I was in Okinawa, Japan. So in a business setting, I was still a beer guy. Every now and then I'd drink a vodka, but I was going out with some people and they would order an old fashioned for dinner or maybe bourbon on the rocks. And I just felt like the odd man out sometimes. So I felt like I needed to be back in the bourbon game. So again, I knew nothing about it. So what do you do when you don't know anything about something? You go to the interweb and you look it up. So that's what I did. In 2020, went on the computer and I searched best bourbons, and it happened to bring up a list for best bourbons of 2020, and there was a long list of them, probably 25 bourbons, and it had everything from best in a soda, best in a old fashioned, or best in a Manhattan, and it was a litany of different options, and one happened to be best tasting bourbon. And I thought, wow, if I'm going to go back into this, I want the one that tastes the best. So lo and behold, 1792 was the best tasting bourbon in 2020. So I marched myself over to Specs Liquor. I was in Texas at the time, and I found me a bottle of 1792 small batch. Now, needless to say, at that time, I didn't know that 1792 made 6 or 8 different bourbons. So I thought 1792 was it. And to be honest with you, I've never gone back to see what version or iteration of 1792 was the best back in 2020. So I went with the 1792, took it straight home. And back then, I didn't even have glasses. I had a solo cup. So, like most people do, I got me a cup and I threw some ice on there and I poured me a little bit of bourbon in that cup and I proceeded to sip on it. And needless to say, wasn't really a fan. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I didn't want to give up on it. So I decided to try again. And this time I tried it neat, no ice. And I sipped on it. And for not being able to stand the smell of it for 28 years, I thought, wow, this really isn't all that bad. So I sipped and sipped, and I kind of acquired the taste over a short period of time, and I developed a liking for it. So one of the issues I had that some of you may have if you get into this or if you've already tried it, I didn't know how to drink it differently from bourbon or from beer. Now, of course, I didn't drink it like a beer. I wasn't pounding 12 ounces of bourbon, but I found myself pouring a lot and drinking it a lot faster than I should. So that was one of the mistakes I made. And needless to say, 12 ounces of bourbon will get you there much quicker than 12 ounces of beer will. So I had to learn a few lessons along the way. I ended up with some nice glasses because I thought, I sure as hell look a lot cooler when I pour my bourbon in a glass versus a red Solo cup. Plus, if I happen to be outside, somebody sees me, they don't know what I've got in that Solo cup. So I'm not going to look cool to them. So I got these glasses, and needless to say, after trial and error, if you can see here, it's got different etchings and grooves. And I'm assuming that means something relative to ounces or fingers. So over the course of time, I figured out that right there, which is probably about 2 ounces or 2 fingers, was probably a good amount for me. Now, needless to say, I still didn't know how to drink it. So again, a few trials and errors and a lot of bourbon, I ended up recognizing that, if I pace myself, 2 ounces of that, roughly, and then if I take a sip, about every 5 minutes, that drink would last me for an hour. So I set out on that course, and to this day, when I drink at home, I use the same glass, and I use the same method and the same timing to keep myself from getting too deep into the bourbon too fast. And I realized that works pretty good. Now, unfortunately, sometimes I will do that method 2 or 3 or 4 times. I'm not encouraging anybody, but once you get into it and realize how soothing it is, sometimes it's easy to get a little carried away. So that's kind of how I learned to deal with drinking the bourbon and not overdoing it too bad, enjoying it, sipping on it. And honestly, for someone who couldn't stand it for so long, I've developed that flavor for it, and it's something I really enjoy doing. So, since I started with 1792, that's why I thought I would review this bottle. And again, a lot of great guys out there, probably experts. I am amateur, maybe novice at best. And I realized I didn't really care that much about learning too deeply about it, but I know there are some important things. For one, I know I prefer the taste of Kentucky bourbons over other bourbons, Tennessee bourbons, and now a lot of states over the last few years have developed bourbons, and some of them are pretty good. I'm not going to lie, but I still prefer the Kentucky bourbon, and it has something to do with the water, as I understand, but everybody says that. New York says that about their pizzas. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I don't know. But it could be a mental thing, but I'm all about the Kentucky bourbons. So 1792, in my curiosity, since I was looking things up, I wondered, why do they call it 1792? Well, Kentucky became a state, earned their statehood in 1792. This little puppy here is made in Bardstown, Kentucky by the Barton Distilling Company. And just a little word of advice. Recently I went on a tour of Whiskey Row and the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, so hoping that I would get to go visit Barton Distillery, gift shop to load up on swag. But needless to say, it's not the big fancy distillery you might suspect. And apparently, I didn't look it up this time like I did 5 years ago. And when Sazerac bought Barton back a few years ago, they decided to shut down the gift shop and the tours. So if you pull up to their drive there, all you're going to see is the loading area and trucks coming in and out and a sign that says no gifts, no tours. So that was a little bit disappointing. But this bourbon happens to be a 93.7 proof, which, again, if you recall, for anyone who was like me and had only experimented with the likes of Jack Daniels or Jim Beam or early times, 93.7 is a little bit hotter than the 80 proof that they bottle those in. So it has a little bit of burn when it goes down, which is something to get used to. Now, as I said, I tried it on ice. I tried it neat. For my taste, I prefer it neat no matter what bourbon I'm drinking. Some guys might give you slack for putting it on an ice block or put it in ice or drinking it with a soda, cola. The reality is, drink it however you like it. It doesn't make two shits bits of difference to me if I'm drinking with you. And honestly, nobody really cares. You drink it the way you like it. Even Elmer T. Lee himself said he likes his with a little bit of Sprite. So whatever suits your fancy, whatever helps you enjoy the experience, because that's what it's all about, enjoying the experience. Have it your way. Okay? So here in Florida, I pay $25 for this bottle. I used to travel the country a lot for work, and of course, when I'm out shopping, I would always go get me a bottle while I'm traveling. Obviously, I would resort back to this because there was a period of about 2 years where this is all I drank, and I drank a lot of it. I used to buy it by the case. I enjoyed it that much. Now I never had a problem. I just like to drink it. You'll find it as much as 35, 40 bucks, which is really overpriced. But I'll be honest with you, if you enjoy bourbon, it's worth 35 bucks. It's probably worth 40 bucks. If you drink a little every day like I do, that gets a little bit pricey. But if you can get it for that $25, $30 range, it is well worth it. Again, if you like bourbon and you want to get into that. And again, I'm not encouraging anybody to drink. If you don't drink, don't start. But if you do and you want to enjoy another experience, try some 1792. It is good in an old fashioned. I just started drinking old fashions last year. I had a couple buddies that got me into it. We would go to a cigar bar and we would smoke cigars. And I started trying the old fashions. And there's a lot of bourbons you can put in there, but this is no different than the other ones. It tastes fantastic in there. I absolutely love the flavor of this. Since then, probably the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I have experimented with a lot of different bourbons. And again, I want to do one of these each week. And I'll be honest with you, not all of them do I like. I will do a few of these reviews of stuff I don't like, but that doesn't mean it's not good. Your taste might be different from mine. Again, that was another thing with watching the other guys do these reviews. When they talk about, oak and leather and tobacco, look, I've never eaten any of those things. Obviously, I smoke. I know what tobacco smells like. I know what it tastes like when you smoke it. I don't know what leather tastes like. I've never eaten it. And every bourbon is stored in oak barrels, so they probably all have some oak to them. So I don't get into the whole flavor thing. All I can tell you is this one tastes good. Again, at 93.7, it's a little hot. But honestly, my palate, I like the higher proofs. I'll do 100. I'll do 1792 makes a full proof. It's 125 proof, which is very spicy. But when you're sipping on it a little at a time, it doesn't hurt that bad. You can put a drop of water on it. If you put it on an ice block or put some cubes in there, cuts it down, and it's not so bad that you can't handle it. So again, that's my journey. Again, I'm doing this channel in hopes that people like me, if they're thinking about getting into bourbon or they've gotten into bourbon, they just don't know where to go, what to look at, what to do, what to buy. Again, you may not like it. I'm telling you, everybody I've told about this that wasn't aware of it, they've enjoyed it. They go back to it. And again, this is not my absolute favorite right now, but it's definitely in my top three. And I almost always have a bottle of this in my bar, and I still thoroughly enjoy drinking it. If you enjoy this video, I ask you please give it a like, subscribe, come back another time. Again, I'm going to do one of these every week with something different. Hopefully I can help you if you're looking to get into this. If not, hopefully I didn't waste too much of your time. I'll do this again every time. I hope to get a little bit better. And maybe I'll think of things that I should have told you that I didn't tell you this time. But remember, too much of anything is bad, but too much good whiskey is barely enough. Mark Twain said that, not me, but I'm Jack, and I hope to see you again the next time.